actually have breaking news.
Oh.
If we could bring this up, Benny Johnson posted this. An individual has been arrested for threatening to kill my wife, my 4 children, and me. He sent a letter to my home saying he hated our views and wanted us dead. He's being charged federally and faces prison time. He goes on to thank the president and the Department of Justice for getting this guy arrested. But it looks like this guy was linked to Antifa.
1 month ago today, I witnessed my friend of 10 years, someone who I considered a brother, a loving husband, a devoted father, a generational leader, get assassinated on a live stream by a left-wing radical. Approximately 1 year ago, I witnessed the President of the United States get shot in the head by a left-wing radical, who also took the life of a Trump supporter in front of his daughters and wife. 2 months ago, Christian children kneeling and praying in a church were slaughtered by a left-wing extremist. And 2 weeks ago, federal law enforcement was shot at multiple sniper rounds in a federal facility by a left-wing extremist. If it's happening every single week, is it that extreme? Or has the Democrat Party mainstreamed violence as a political tool? The individual who wrote me described why he wanted me dead. I was a white, cis, Christian Trump supporter. They described in great detail how I would be killed in an open field, just like Charlie, how much blood would come out of my head and neck when it was blown off. This individual described orphaning my 4 beautiful children and widowing my wife with great joy.
So we actually have a little background on who this guy was. And I know that the Post-Millennial just published this, so we can take a look at that story.
Bondi came up to us after the Antifa roundtable, showing like a lot of concern about us talking about death threats.
Mm-hmm.
She was, she seemed very, I don't know her personally. I didn't know her before the Trump administration. She seemed very concerned and very serious.
Yeah, I'm glad that she was concerned.
Yeah.
So Pam Bondi announced the federal charges against the left-wing radical who threatened to kill commentator Benny Johnson. This is from Thomas Stevenson of the Post-Millennial. She said that George Isbell Jr., who sent the letter, said he hated Benny because of his views and he wanted Benny dead. And she answered questions about the ideology of the person who was sent the letter. She said that it was a left-wing radical who had sent the letter threatening to kill Johnson. Are we going to see more political assassination attempts? We did just see the man who was convicted of trying to assassinate Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. He got only 8 years after saying that he was a woman and he was like transitioning in jail. And she was like, "Oh, we feel bad for you now. You should only get 8 years." Is that kind of lack of actual punishment? Is that kind of tolerance for political assassination attempts? What are we looking at? Is this going to keep going?
Didn't George Santos get 7 years for what he did? Just for example.
Yeah.
Talked to him right before he went to jail.
That's crazy. I still think that's nuts.
Yeah.
How many Republicans voted
Over 7 years.
to kick him out of Congress? That was nuts. And
Before
Mike
he
Johnson
was even convicted.
Yeah. Mike Johnson told all of them to vote your conscience. No, dude, that's not what you should
Trust
say.
me, this guy doesn't like me. He hates me. And I don't
doesn't matter.
care. I mean, he'll still come out and say that that's ridiculous. But so he gets 7 years.
He gets 7 years.
And the guy that you're talking about, I don't remember his
the guy
name.
who Nicholas Roski,
who
tried to assassinate
Sophie now.
Yeah,
Sophie.
whatever.
Right.
We haven't talked about the radicalization on trans yet.
We haven't.
That's a whole nother discussion, isn't it?
We can bring that up. We should have talked about that.
But I
wish this was
am
longer,
glad that I was.
Are
actually
we looking at more of this? Yeah.
I was with Benny when he got this call,
Mm-hmm.
and you could tell he was getting like emotional over the fact that they actually found the guy and they were able to arrest him. He got the call while we were in Portland, embedded with Kristi Noem. And I was glad to see how excited Pam Bondi was when she was talking to us about this at the roundtable. And she knew about the swatting situation because my parents have been swatted. They try to find me, they can't find me, so they keep going after my family. And I said, yeah, I mean it's still a problem, and we haven't found out who's doing it. And she's like, Cash, here now. Cash comes over and we start talking about it, and he's like, okay, well, here's my chief of staff. Give him a call. We're going to find out who did this. I promise you that. And she's like, yeah, I mean, the FBI has the resources to do it. They have the ability to do it, and they're going to do it. Well, I'm glad they're finally getting serious about this stuff.
I used to work with the Federalist, and I would write for them, and all of the women, at one point, all of the women at the Federalist were getting incessant, crazy phone calls in the dead of night from someone just saying, I'm going to kill you, and I'm leaving voicemails, you're scum, you're Nazi scum, and I'm going to take your head off, and all of this stuff. And I was like, has anybody else been getting these calls? And all of them, yes, we're all getting the calls. You have to alert the FBI. I never heard anything about it. And eventually the calls stopped, but they were terrifying. I mean, it would be 1:00 in the morning. My phone would ring, just be sitting there watching Star Trek, and I'd just be terrified. It was very effective.
And they're normalizing it at this point. Even the in the state next door, you have that person, the front runner for attorney general over there, just being like, yeah, well, some of them have to die. That's how this has to work. That's the only way that.
He thought, his idea is that if you're not touched personally, you're not going to change policy, and so you may as well end up dead. Yeah.
Referring to his children.
Yeah, this was the AG nominee Jay Jones, and last night in the Virginia gubernatorial debate, Abigail Spanberger refused to pull her endorsement. She was just like, "Oh, everyone should vote how they want." And Winsome Earl Sears was like, "Are you crazy? How can you back this guy?"
Yeah, it's not just being normalized. It's being like celebrated, and they're fawning over the idea of violence against their opposition, and that's really the big difference here, is because you'll get psychopaths that are right wing, but nobody on the right's like, awesome, that's so amazing. You're not seeing thousands of people taking it to social media celebrating these things. No.
They killed Charlie, and we all went out into the street and prayed.
For a week straight. That was the response, right? Yeah. That was the response. And I was actually interviewing like leftists, and they were bringing up, I don't know why, this one girl that I was talking to, she was actually at the memorial protesting Charlie Kirk because she thought that was a reasonable thing to be doing. And she brought up George Floyd. And I'm like, why would you bring up the response after George Floyd in general and thinking that's a good, comparison there? The response after George Floyd, because they turned this guy into a martyr, was mass violence on a scale we haven't seen in decades. And just see how the not just the right, but just the American people and people that aren't absolutely insane responded to Charlie Kirk's death.
Yeah.
Weeks of vigils and prayer and all of that. And there is a serious difference between the two parties right now when it comes to their reaction to things like that and what they're egging on. And that's really the dangerous thing, is this assassination culture that they're really, so much of the base, a horrifying percentage of the Democrat base is encouraging and cheering on.
Thinks political violence is a way to deal with things. Of course, Charlie's, suspected assassin did have there was a trans component to his story, right? And I think, Andy, I'm really glad you brought up Trantifa, because I think that we should talk about that. What is this relationship between trans and Antifa? What's going on there?
Well, Antifa are time and context specific. So for a number of years, they latched on to BLM because there was a whole system that pumped out lies day in and day out about white supremacy and blacks being genocided by law enforcement. Well, BLM's fallen a bit out of vogue. They've had a number of financial scandals that were embarrassing to the organization. People aren't really giving money to them. There also haven't been really super high-profile cases like George Floyd since 2020 that have been caught on video and have been exploited to that same type of extent. So the next thing, though, has been trans. There's, over the last 4 years, lots of protests for and against trans radicalism in a number of states. Trans militants and activists, mainstream activists, in response to a number of Republican-led states placing restrictions on the transitioning of children, have said that they are now victims of an ongoing trans genocide, are encouraging one another to join far left militias like John Brown Gun Club or the Socialist Rifle Association, stockpile weapons and be prepared for anti-government action and be prepared to kill fascists and transphobes. And they are pumped with that propaganda in the mainstream and on their radical networks day in and day out. I believe that mental health comorbidities plays a factor in the extremism. And I think hormones, cross-sex hormones, may as well. You put all that together, we're now experiencing a number of mass shootings by trans people that was an unknown phenomenon 10 years ago. And now we're seeing it yearly.
Seems like that's the reaction, like a natural reaction to painting everything that the right wing does as violence. Like even silence is violence, right? For the right. And so it seems as though that just continues to go that direction of every single thing that they do, every single position that they hold is violence. I think, isn't there a catchphrase for basically every single position that conservatives hold? Or
punch a Nazi in the face.
There you go. Yeah, they're a Nazi, punch them in the face. There you go. Okay. But
yeah, punch a Nazi was like a big way that they normalized just violence against conservatives, because it was punch a Nazi. And then conservatives are Nazis, so punch conservatives. And Christians are Nazis, so punch Christians.
The trans genocide thing, though, they just throw that out there. Is there a basis for it? Absolutely not. We recognize that guy. Is there a basis for it? Absolutely not. In fact, I don't know if you guys have this number, but the last time I did the number on the people that identify as trans, that community within the United States, their murder rate is like 1/4 of the general population's murder rate. So they're actually less likely to get murdered than the general population.
But they go crazy on this whole thing.
But they're calling that a genocide because that's just what's popular. It's trendy. And therefore, if you're against, transitioning children and giving children sex changes, you also support this genocide that we made up. And therefore, we're going to use violence against you.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.